"You're not getting paid," my mom told my 15-year-old after 2 weeks of working at their restaurant. "Honestly, you should be grateful we let you help," my sister added, laughing. My daughter said nothing. Neither did I. That night I just did this. By morning the phone wouldn't stop ringing, and their faces were full of panic. Lily wanted to earn her first money. She was 15 and determined to stand on her own 2 feet in ways that most adults still struggle with. She had big plans, not unrealistic ones, just hers. She wanted a camera, the kind you can't just ask for as a birthday gift. She wanted to buy her own clothes without asking for a card. She talked about saving for a trip her school was planning next year, where they'd fly somewhere she'd never been. It wasn't about showing off. It was about the kind of pride you feel when you buy something with your own money. And I was proud of her, we both were. So when my mom offered her a chance to work at the family restaurant for the summer, I said yes, even though some part of me paused before the word left my mouth. The restaurant had always been a minefield. But my mother made it sound like a favor. "Just help out during the lunch and dinner rush," she said. "We'll pay her, of course. It'll be good experience." My sister chimed in with some line about learning the value of work. I wanted to believe them. I really did. For 2 weeks, Lily gave them everything. She was there before they unlocked the doors and still sweeping when the last customer left. 12-hour days. No breaks except the ones she took standing up. They let her wait tables, clean dishes, mop floors, take orders. She even handled complaints from customers, with that calm, sweet tone she always has when she's nervous but refuses to show it. She came home smelling like grease and dish soap. Her fingers were red and dry from sanitizer, and her shoes, ones I told her not to wear, were falling apart by day 5. She didn't complain once. She kept a black notebook in her drawer. Wrote down every single shift, start to finish, even the extra half hours when they asked her to stay. I saw the way she checked her notes, calculating totals in her head. He was proud of that number. She told me she wanted to surprise her dad by buying his birthday gift herself. Then came the night. We were at the restaurant waiting to pick her up. The place was closing down. My mom was at the counter flipping through the register. My sister was drinking a Sprite and scrolling through her phone. Lily stood there for a moment, notebook in hand, and asked when she'd be getting paid. My mom didn't even look up. "You're not getting paid," she said. My sister snorted and said, "Honestly, you should be grateful we let you help." Lily didn't speak. She just stood still for a second, then walked to the back to grab her backpack. I said nothing. Not because I was scared. Not because I didn't want to start a fight in front of my daughter. I didn't speak because for a second I was 14 again, standing in that same restaurant being told I was lucky to be needed. And just like that, all the years in between shrank. We walked home in silence. Lily handed me the notebook at the front door. I didn't open it until she went to bed. There were hours on every line. Full shifts. Notes in the margins like extra table and cleaned walk-in fridge. She had earned every cent and more. I stayed up staring at the ceiling. My heart was tight in a way I couldn't shake off. And I kept seeing her face when they said it. Not hurt, not surprised, just disappointed. Like something in her had confirmed itself. At midnight I got in the car and drove to the restaurant. There were no lights on. The parking lot was empty. I sat there for 5 minutes before I did it. 2 quick throws. 1 rock. 1 brick. Glass shattered like a scream into the quiet night. I didn't wait around. By morning their phones were blowing up. The street was buzzing. And I wasn't answering. By 7:52 a.m., my phone had already buzzed 12 times. Missed calls from my mom, a voicemail from my dad, 2 text messages from my sister, and a group chat notification from a thread I hadn't looked at in months. Family biz. I didn't open any of them. I was sitting in the kitchen watching Lily stir her cereal absently while scrolling through her phone. She didn't know yet. Or maybe she did and just didn't care to ask. That wouldn't surprise me. She wasn't the kind of kid who liked drama. She just wanted to work, to earn, to be respected. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional crunch of her spoon. My coffee had gone cold. I wasn't really drinking it anyway. At 8:04 the first picture showed up on Facebook. Someone had driven past the restaurant early and posted it in the neighborhood group. 2 front windows completely shattered. One of the wooden chairs had been dragged halfway out onto the sidewalk by someone. Maybe the cops, maybe the owners. Glass everywhere. You could still see the neon open sign glowing in the background, crooked, like it had taken a hit too. By 8:10 my sister sent me a photo of it directly. "What the hell? Do you know anything about this?" I didn't answer. At 8:17 my mother tried calling again. "Someone vandalized the restaurant. Call me back now. Then, we're going to involve the police. This isn't a joke." And then 10 minutes later. "Did Lily see anything? He might have heard something. Get her talk." That last one made me laugh out loud. Like Lily was the problem. Like they could just squeeze answers out of her the way they tried to squeeze labor. I closed my phone and slid it across the table. By 10 a.m. the story had already twisted twice. First it was a random break-in. Then it was a targeted act. Then my mom was telling people it was probably one of the crazies from the homeless encampment a few blocks down. I read that line in one of her comments and almost smashed my own phone. Lily asked me why her aunt kept texting her and if she should answer. I told her no. She nodded like she expected that. The worst part, they still hadn't mentioned the money. Not once. Not an apology, not even a fake excuse. Just silence. Like the 2 weeks Lily spent working didn't count. Like her time wasn't real because she was a kid. But now that something of theirs was broken, suddenly it was urgent. Suddenly it was war. At 4:13 p.m. they showed up at my door. No warning. No text. Just standing there on my porch like they owned the neighborhood. My mom had her arms crossed, my sister was behind her, sunglasses on like this was some kind of mission. I opened the door because I wanted to see how far they'd take it. My mom didn't ask if we were okay. She didn't ask about Lily. She started right in with how devastated they were. How much it was going to cost. How people were canceling their Friday dinner reservations. She said the insurance company might not cover the damage since there was no camera footage. My sister jumped in and said maybe it was karma. She actually used that word, karma, like they were the ones who'd been wronged. They danced around it for 5 minutes before finally trying to spin the story. That Lily had volunteered. That she'd said she wanted to help. That they were just trying to give her experience, and didn't realize she was expecting money. Then my mom had the nerve to say, "You should have come to us first. Not this." I told them they needed to leave. Right then. They didn't fight me on it. My mom just shook her head and muttered something about me always being difficult. My sister called me ungrateful as she walked away, like I was supposed to thank them for scamming my daughter. Later that night I found out they were already spinning the story to the rest of the family. That I was unstable. That Lily was confused. That I had filled her head with lies and poisoned her against them. That I had always had problems with boundaries. They were trying to rewrite history. But this time people weren't buying it so fast. A cousin I hadn't talked to in years messaged me out of nowhere. She said she saw the posts and she believed me. Said her own daughter worked there once and never saw a dime. Someone else chimed in too. A friend from church who used to bake pies for their holiday specials and said they still owed her $50. Stories were unraveling. Quietly but fast. Still they didn't apologize. Didn't admit anything. They weren't sorry, just scared. Embarrassed. Desperate to control the damage. And I realized, this wasn't over. Not even close. The next few days were a blur of whispers, sideways looks, and ringing phones that I stopped answering. Word had gotten around faster than I expected, not about the windows but about why. People were putting pieces together. The girl who worked 12-hour shifts for nothing. The daughter of the woman who supposedly lost her mind overnight. There were enough stories floating around the neighborhood already. All it took was one post from someone brave enough to ask why a 15-year-old was working like that in the first place. And people did start asking. By the end of the week, a local parenting group on Facebook was flooded with comments. A few of them had screenshots. One woman shared a photo she took of Lily at the restaurant just a few days before the break. Apron on, handing out menus, smile exhausted. Another person asked if child labor laws applied, and that set off a whole new chain of arguments. It stopped being about me. It became about them. My mom tried damage control. She posted some vague half-apology online about how they were a tight-knit family, and how, sometimes things get misinterpreted, and how, young people today don't always understand how businesses work. It had 6 likes and 17 laughing emojis. Then came the meeting. Not a formal one. Just one of those, you're expected to show up things that happen when you're in a big family and you still live too close. It was at my aunt's house. Saturday afternoon. Everyone was already there when Lily and I walked in. People quieted when they saw us. I could feel my mom's eyes from across the room. She started speaking before anyone asked her to. Said there'd been a misunderstanding. Said the restaurant was struggling. Said she never meant to make Lily feel unappreciated. That if anything she thought we'd all be grateful for the opportunity she gave her. And that's when I snapped. I told the whole room the truth. That Lily was promised pay. That she wrote down every hour because she was told those hours would be compensated. That they used her, laughed at her, and then treated her like she was ungrateful for wanting what she'd earned. I told them about the notebook. About the shift where Lily skipped dinner because they needed someone to cover an extra table. About how my sister laughed in her face when she asked for her wages. And then I told them what I did. I looked straight at my mother and said, "Yeah, it was me. I smashed your windows. I didn't break in. I didn't take a thing. But I wanted you to feel something." For once. The room was dead silent. My uncle muttered that he would have done worse if someone tried that with his kid. My cousin, the same one who messaged me earlier, actually said loud enough for everyone to hear, "They never paid me either." That cracked everything open. Stories came pouring out. Quiet ones mostly. Little unpaid favors, unacknowledged work, emotional IOUs that were never honored. Everyone in the room had a version of it. People started nodding. Some people looked away. My mom got up and left halfway through. My sister followed. But not before tossing out one last jab about how I was making a scene, like always. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table while Lily slept in her room. The window was open just enough to let in the night air. I felt calmer than I had in days. Not because it was over, it wasn't. But because the silence had finally cracked. People had seen them. Really seen them. And I still had one more thing to do. They needed to feel it where it hurt. Not their pride. Their pocket. Around 2:40 a.m., I walked the 3 blocks to their house. I knew exactly where my dad parked his car. And I brought a knife. I had the knife in my jacket pocket. Not some big dramatic thing. Just a small one from the junk drawer, the kind you'd use to cut fruit or open Amazon boxes. But it felt heavy the whole way there. It was 2:40 a.m., dead quiet except for a distant bark and the occasional flick of a street lamp buzzing overhead. Their house looked exactly the same as it always had. Same cracked porch step. Same plastic flower pot with no plant. My dad's car sat under the tree, tucked into the narrow strip of driveway like it had every night for decades. I stood next to it, hand in my pocket, running over everything in my head. The shifts Lily worked. The silence they gave her. The smirk on my sister's face. My mom counting cash like it didn't burn. I wanted to do it. I really did. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I stepped back and checked it. "Mom, are you still awake?" Sent by Lily, 2:43 a.m. I froze. It wasn't fear that stopped me. It was the fact that she was awake. And the way she worded it, like she knew. Like some instinct had nudged her out of sleep and told her to check on me. I walked home instead. When I opened the door, Lily was sitting on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her and her notebook on her lap. She didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't accuse. She just said one thing. She said she didn't want revenge. She wanted dignity. She told me she didn't care about the money anymore. Not really. She said she just wanted them to say it. That what they did was wrong. That they lied. That they used her. And not behind closed doors but out loud. Where everyone could hear it. I sat beside her and nodded. We didn't say anything else that night. But in my head everything changed. I hadn't realized that while I was burning with rage, Lily was trying to build something better out of this. She didn't want them to pay, she wanted them to learn. She wanted to win with her name, not by hiding behind mine. The next morning my dad's car wouldn't start. I heard about it from a cousin who texted me a photo. The hood popped open, my dad leaning over the engine in a bathrobe, red-faced and confused. A neighbor had apparently seen something strange earlier. Said a figure in a hoodie had been hanging around the night before. Sugar in the gas tank. But here's the twist, it wasn't me. I hadn't told anyone where I went. I hadn't mentioned anything about the car. But someone else had clearly decided they'd seen enough. Someone else wanted to send a message. By the afternoon, rumors were flying. The same local Facebook group that had blown up over Lily's story now had a dozen threads about sabotage, shady practices, unpaid labor, and karma. Some folks were defending my parents. Most weren't. Former employees started commenting. Not trolls, real people. A guy who used to do dishes said he never got his final paycheck. A woman who baked desserts on contract said she was ghosted after Thanksgiving orders. A delivery driver said he once waited 3 hours in the parking lot and got blamed when food spoiled. The dam had cracked. Then came something even more unexpected. A small food blog. Nothing huge, just one that covered local businesses and neighborhood events. Reached out for comment. Apparently, someone tipped them off about the unpaid labor. They were doing a piece. Not just about Lily. About patterns. My mom called me furious. I let it ring. Then my sister texted. "You really want to ruin us? For what? A few bucks your kid didn't even need?" I didn't respond. Because it wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about the way they treated people when no one was looking. About how they convinced themselves that anything done for the family didn't need fairness or truth or decency. That if someone worked quietly and didn't complain, they didn't deserve more. That night the restaurant was empty. They closed early. For the first time in years. And somewhere out there someone had stepped up in a way I didn't expect. I wasn't alone anymore. Neither was Lily. And my parents. For once, they were the ones cleaning up a mess they couldn't blame on anybody else. 2 days after the blog post went live, my dad showed up at our door. No warning. No text ahead of time. Just him, standing on our front step like someone who knew he wasn't welcome but didn't know where else to go. He looked smaller than usual, like the last few days had worn him down in ways his pride couldn't cover anymore. No clipboard. No phone to his ear. Just his jacket zipped up too high and his hands shoved deep into the pockets. He asked if he could come in. It threw me off, the fact that he even asked. I let him in mostly because I was curious what version of the truth he was going to offer. He didn't sit down. He stood in the middle of the living room like it didn't belong to either of us, like he was in someone else's house. Lily stayed in her room. I didn't call her out. I wanted to hear what he had to say, raw and unfiltered. He started with the business. Of course. Said the restaurant was bleeding money. Said 3 catering clients had pulled out. Said an inspector showed up that morning, asking questions about minors and shift logs. My sister apparently spent the whole day calling old employees, trying to get ahead of something that was already out of their control. He said your mother's a wreck. He said people are choosing sides. And then finally he stopped spinning. He looked at me and said, "We handled it wrong." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. More than I expected. He said they assumed Lily was just helping. That they thought it was understood, there wouldn't be payment, that it was family. He said they didn't realize how serious it would get. That he thought we'd all move on. I asked him one thing. Would you say that to Lily? He looked down. Didn't answer. So I told him to go. I told him nothing meant anything unless he said it to her face. Not to me. Not to the family. To her. I said if that was too hard, then he should stop pretending like he wanted to fix anything at all. He left quietly. No defense. No sudden speech. Just walked out. That night Lily came out of her room, stood in the kitchen and asked me straight up. Did Grandpa come here? I nodded. She didn't ask what he said. She just looked at me and said, "They don't actually think I matter. They think you do. Because you're loud." I didn't know what to say to that. The next morning my mom posted a message online. Not in the family group chat, publicly. A long post on her page. She didn't mention Lily by name, but the context was clear. She talked about blurring family and business, about how lines got crossed and things were said that shouldn't have been. She used phrases like valued lesson, and deep regret, and miscommunication. Who was careful? Too careful. The comments exploded. Some were sympathetic. Most weren't. People weren't interested in phrases. They wanted actions. People asked if Lily was getting paid. If the labor violations would be reported. This was the first time or just the first time someone said something. She didn't answer those comments. But the story was out now. And it had grown beyond them. That afternoon I started getting calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. People who usually avoided drama were suddenly asking for the full story. Not to judge but to push. My mom and dad had always been the gravitational center of the family, but this time the orbit was shifting. They were being told for the first time that what they did wasn't forgivable just because they were the parents. That this wasn't going to disappear under a tablecloth at the next holiday dinner. That evening Lily got a text from my mom. No long-winded intro. No excuses. Just, "I'd like to apologize to you directly. In person. With the whole family present." Lily read it 3 times. Then handed me the phone. I asked her what she wanted. She said she wanted to see if they could look her in the eye and mean it. So we agreed. They picked Sunday afternoon. My aunt offered her house. Neutral ground, even though we all knew where the weight was leaning now. And for the first time I didn't feel like we were walking into a fight. We were walking into a reckoning. Sunday afternoon came like the eye of a storm. Too quiet, too still, like everything was holding its breath. Lily didn't ask me what to wear. She didn't say much that morning at all. She tied her hair back, wore her cleanest jeans and a gray hoodie she'd outgrown just slightly in the sleeves. There was something steady about her, the kind of calm that only comes when you've already decided you're not the one who should feel ashamed. She tucked the notebook into her bag without a word. I didn't ask her why. When we arrived at my aunt's house, the backyard was already full. Lawn chairs, folding tables, half-drunk sodas sitting on paper plates. People who had stayed out of it until now were suddenly showing up. Cousins I hadn't seen since Christmas, my dad's brother who never liked family drama, but clearly wanted to witness the fallout. The mood wasn't festive. It was tense, expectant. Like we were all waiting for someone to say something that would tip the whole thing over. My parents stood near the patio, side by side but not touching. My mom's hands were clasped too tightly in front of her. My dad kept glancing down at something in his pocket. For the first time I couldn't read what they were thinking. And I didn't care to. Lily walked straight up to them. She didn't say anything. Just stood there looking up at them, her face unreadable. My mother spoke first. "I'm sorry," she said, voice low but clear enough for everyone to hear. "Not just to you, Lily. To everyone here who saw what happened and knew it wasn't right. The backyard was still. Nobody moved. I'm sorry for not paying you, she continued. You worked. You deserved to be paid. You earned that respect and I didn't give it to you. I treated you like free labor because I thought I could. Because I did that to others before you and no one said anything. Her voice cracked a little but she didn't stop. That's on me. Then my dad stepped forward. He didn't look at anyone else. Just Lily. I should have said this sooner. You didn't deserve what happened. You were responsible, you showed up every day and we took advantage of that. We thought because we're family it didn't count the same way. That's not an excuse. It's just what we told ourselves to feel okay about it. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his checkbook. No grand speeches, no disclaimers. He asked her how many hours she had worked. Lily pulled the notebook from her bag and handed it to him. He read through it carefully, slowly. He wrote the check in silence. And when he handed it to her, he looked her directly in the eye and said, I'm sorry. She took the check, folded it once and slid it into her pocket. Still she didn't say anything. But she didn't have to. Because then one by one, other people started speaking. My cousin said she remembered working a whole summer at the restaurant when she was 17 and never getting paid for cleaning the kitchen every night. My aunt admitted she made 300 pies for Thanksgiving one year and was told she'd be compensated with family love. Someone else talked about doing repairs, plumbing, inventory. All of it swept under the rug in the name of family. It was like a release valve opening. The thing no one said for years was now the only thing anyone could talk about. My parents didn't argue. They didn't deny it. They sat down at one of the folding tables, heads low, and listened. Lily ended up sitting on the steps with my little nephew, showing him how to shoot on manual mode with her phone camera, explaining what shutter speed was. Her face was relaxed. She laughed. It hit me then she hadn't laughed in weeks. Before we left, my mom pulled her aside. They spoke quietly. I didn't hear what was said. Lily didn't tell me. But when we got into the car, she looked out the window and said, that was enough. I nodded. And then she added, but I still hope they mean it tomorrow too. Not just today. I told her that's how you know the difference between a real apology and one made under pressure. You wait to see who they are when no one's watching. The next week, the restaurant reopened. But something had changed. There was a new sign in the window. Now hiring. Paid training. Transparent hours. All workers welcome. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't some PR stunt. But it was something. And Lily's notebook? She didn't put it away. She left it on her desk, open to the page where the hours ended and the line was finally drawn. Not for the money. But for the moment her voice, quiet, steady, changed everything.